Hello everyone, this is Ethan Dragon, and welcome back to another episode of Fire Emblem Heroes. As you can see, we barely scraped our way to tier 39, and honestly, we shouldn't have done this terrible, but even though we had both Regan and Zeros here, we did a bunch of brain-dead shenanigans that we get to talk about in this week's replays. Now, of course, it wouldn't be our usual shenanigans with Ether Raid's offense if it weren't for actually playing the matches while we're absolutely brain dead. So, definitely a lot of unit sacks this week, most of them not intentional, because, again, we just made silly errors. One of the silliest errors we made was forgetting that Harmonized Leaf comes with Kanto 1. For some reason, every single time we're up against Harmonized Leaf, I never remember he has Kanto 1. It's probably because he always either dies in one round even though he initiates, or we just never let him do anything to actually proc that Kanto, so it never comes to mind. But overall, we got obliterated by ranged units long sniping us and stuff of that nature. That one match where I forgot Harmonized Leaf had Kanto 1, I wouldn't have made the play I made had I known, but we lost, I think, 3 units that match. That's minus 100 lift already. We also had a couple of other matches where we just had single unit sacks from snipe downs. Chances are we probably could have found deathless wins, but we had I think a couple of 2 unit loss wins. I think one match was just completely silly where we were doing literally anything. Speaking of doing literally anything, I thought it would be funny this week. Since in previous seasons, we've always had problems where the far save unit was always walling. So introducing the world's best counter to far save units, running absolutely no ranged units. It's so silly, but it's honestly kind of funny because a lot of people do bring the dual save team, so in effect the far save unit does absolutely nothing, and it's up to the near save unit and all the other units, typically hyper offensive, because that's what people like to pair with their save units. They like to hit and turn and snipe down all the other units that don't actually do anything. But here we just have our meme shenanigans here. Legendary Sigurd up against Fallen Rhea. I haven't actually seen too much of her ever since she was actually released. She is around and about, but I feel like just all Fallen units in general eventually fall off, which is kind of weird, because a lot of Fallen units do have some interesting utilities and
just like Bosnia.
niches, whatever you want to pronounce that word. Apparently, I think they're all correct in some forms of English.
Your life
But
is forfeit.
it's definitely an interesting idea. I've never seen many defenses other than the random one where people slap together a bunch of units and call it a day. I've never seen a defense, a really good defense that comes to mind, where it's just all melee units. Because typically, if you're gonna run a strat like what I'm running with a lot of cav units, it's going to be some sort of variant of cav line where you have ranged cav units causing a huge threat area, or equivalently some sort of Pathfinder shenanigans with knots or dual dagger and whatnot. So just the idea of having all melee is kind of funny to me. I'm sure people have done it plenty of times before, but it's just something I was like, if we can't beat the far save unit, let's not even
Coin's
try.
the coolest.
And so far in these replays, it's somehow doing okay, which is silly, but
Yeah.
here Reagan, of course, is going to take out Olivia, and Reagan bonus definitely was useful for us this week. He survive hits I believe he normally wouldn't be able to, and of course the extra attack and speed, always nice for damage and actually doubling, because you can never have too much speed on offense if you're trying to player face. Yeah. Legendary Nana, like once again, super useful this week. She's just so useful for actually picking up kills on units that we normally might have trouble picking up kills on, but of course the issue was always getting her into the fight and out, because she only has effectively near trace in her B slot. So she's not like Reagan where she can attack and Canto 3 the heck out of there. We typically had to smite her in and do some things to get some higher Canto out of her B skill. But once again, here we have a dual save team, so once again the far save unit completely useless. I mean, they're not completely useless, it's just that they're not going to do anything enemy phase. You could still player phase with them, and maybe in a really dire scenario you could have them just base tank a melee unit, although for some of these melee units, not recommended. Harmonized Roy here just going to get obliterated by Brave Edelgard here.
I'll cut my own.
Because she can't, or he can't do anything with the damage reduction. So at least he does survive thanks to Sturdy Surge. Well, that's about it. He gets to attack again, which was nice and all, but it really didn't do much for us there. And now they can just go start smacking down Legendary Nana, who of course Brave Edelgard definitely probably would not want to 1v1, especially if Legendary Nana is maxed out on power. Fortunately for them, she's just a sitting duck against ranged units, so that's just a free kill. But now, Brave Edelgard up against Legendary Sigurd. See how she does here. And well, not looking good so far for her damage output. Looking pretty good for Sigurd's damage output here. Gonna proc Holy Knight Aura yet again, but this time she has damage reduction, but she's also getting Elamine support. So, unfortunately for Brave Edelgard, Holy Knight Aura is going off again because she wasn't able to pick up the 1-round KO, and that's a rip for Brave Edelgard. So now, Legendary Sigurd can keep attacking. I don't know how many times he needs to attack, but I mean, that's why he has his guaranteed follow-up attacks, and a pretty reasonable attack stats. So without their far save unit, never really did anything. It really is pretty silly, though, because theoretically, against a team like this, you pretty much always just go for a hit and run, or an absolute Gale Force Rampage, because they're all melee range, so you can totally just leave like Mirabilis or Olivia alive, because their skill power is not that great. But what's also not great is Legendary Nana not able to pick up the 1-round KO on Edelgard. Weird voice crack there, but that's primarily, of course, because bonus doubler. Legendary Nana also got panicked for her attack speed menace, and of course Fallen Edelgard debuffs Legendary Nana's attack by 6. So all in all, that definitely hurts her damage output significantly, which is not great for us, great for them. So that is a problem with Legendary Nana on defense. She needs to be able to scale her attack, and on defense, it's pretty hard to scale attack. That typically involves having allies also buffed for her. And if it's not something like Cross Spur Attack, which is buff all the way across the map, probably not happening unless the opponent lets you do it, which is not recommended, to say the least. But here, Fallen Edelgard is just going to advance, and of course we all know that's a terrible idea, because now Legendary Nana does not have all those debuffs on her. So that's just a free kill on Fallen Edelgard, and now she can start rampaging and going around. No vantage range for Tina,
But how?
as far as I know, so that's another kill, and well, Olivia's still there, so now we get to take out the bonus doubler buffer
Face the
in
future.
Legendary Elwood. He was bonus this week, so not sure how many people used him. I don't have him, so not an option to use for funny defense, I think. Because honestly, Panic is not as common as it used to be. But it's still around. Panic Manners, of course, is still around, and at max level, it pretty much panics most relevant units. The only units that realistically wouldn't get panicked are the HP stacking ones for, like, say, Bride Fiorm or Loki, or some tank with just all the mythic support, summoner support, and all of that. So, and in that case, typically those types of units tend to neutralize debuffs anyways. So the best that Panic would do would be to effectively remove the field buffs, which, I'm gonna be real, would not change our matchups. Those units a lot anyways. But here, Duma gets the troll. Even though he's by himself, they let him initiate. So he gets to do Duma memes and do quite a bit of damage to Legendary Core in here for the one shot. And of course, Plumeria versus Duma, not a great matchup, especially when Plumeria is below 100% HP.
First for me.
Because that just means he has to go for pretty hefty one shot. That's not happening here. And here we are with Ascended Fiorm, about to do absolutely nothing. But this is, of course, very smart. Here they are using Elamine to move over Upheaval Plus. Although they don't do anything turn 1 necessarily here, they just decide to go for the end turn here. I feel like they could have maybe gone for some funny turn 1 play, they decided not to. And Legendary Sigurd versus Valentine Tina, if you haven't seen her around a lot, you probably know at this point that she's pretty decent as a save unit because of Gerber Axe, of course. Also having Future Vision for some extra mobility and flexibility. And of course, Savvy Fighter
You're going to love
for
this.
leaning over those guaranteed follow-up attacks, but also because she is actually kind of fast, pretty darn fast. You can get the damage reduction off of Savvy Fighter as well. That combined with Gerber Axe, and of course, Elamine's, what is it, Holy Ground? Damage reduction? Yeah, she's going to be tanking quite a bit. And so here, Legendary Nana didn't get to attack her, so we'll never see how that would have gone down, but of course, you can always calc it out if you want to, exercise for the viewer. A lot of the times, of course, Legendary Nana isn't actually going to outspeed Valentine Lucidinger, because of course she has that status that neutralizes those field buffs, which is definitely quite annoying for us. And her base speed here, 58, super high. Of course, she doesn't neutralize penalties, so Bright Shrine does matter, but you can see she does pack a pretty reasonable speed stat even with those debuffs. So, of course she is green, but Legendary Nana can only get so much attack. So it's an interesting exercise for the viewer, I suppose, if you're interested, but
A token of my
these
gratitude.
Ignis procs definitely putting in that work, definitely getting quite a bit of damage out of it. Not exceedingly high damage, because of course Valentine Lucina's gimmick is not having tons of defensive res, it's more about the damage reduction and other shenanigans associated with being Valentine Lucina, like having Savvy Fighter. Just being able to prevent all guaranteed follow-ups from enemies is pretty darn strong, if I say so myself. If Nino could have that on offense, she would probably do a lot better than she has. Speaking of Nino, though, we are going to be entering Chaos Season in the upcoming season, so we'll see how that goes.
May
I'm
my love
contemplating
reach
whether I
farther.
want to try and actually record every match we have during Chaos Season, but I do feel like it might be a big bag of marbles. Because on the one hand, I've been trying out my Chaos offense team on some of my whale friends' defenses for Chaos Season, since a lot of them do have it up already. I've gone for, of course, the usual offense challenge we do, one team only, don't activate traps, and of course you only get one try. And needless to say, a lot of them, we really need to do our daily damage calcs, and it's super apparent that Nino is not able to face tank
I will
as
see it
much
done.
as she normally can.
Seems like
because
a
of
bad
course there's
sign.
no access to HP and other stats from Mythic Blessings. He does fortunately get stats from being a bonus unit, because of course for this first season of Chaos Shenanigans, version 1 units are bonus. So that's nice, the plus 10 HP definitely comes in handy, but her damage output is also lacking, and there's some particular defense archetypes that are quite annoying for our team to deal with. One of the worst teams we can possibly be up against is, of course, a tanky far save unit combined with Kanto control, so there's no real strong melee hit and run. Still technically possible, but not with our shenanigans. And then of course something like Warp Bubble or Gatekeeper's Detailed Report. Both of those incredibly all those three things in combination super annoying for us, because Nino can't shred through the far save units, which is not great. So that means we have to initiate going by hitting end turn, but if we can't tank by hitting end turn, then we have to try and initiate by going in melee range, but a lot of people place their traps in front right next to their units, so we can't even engage in melee range because then we would fail the don't activate traps challenge. But even if we weren't doing that challenge, we'd still have to be able to figure out which trap is the fake one. And of course we can't teleport anyone in if we wanted to, because there's Warp Bubble slash Gatekeeper. The one thing with Warp Bubble though on Legendary Mirror is that it does have to proc turn
I'm
1.
going to stop you.
So I imagine people will be able to deal with those kinds of defenses
We'll protect
by
you
going in turn 1 and
always.
having safe defense.
Yeah.
That will definitely do it. Or some sort of Gale Force nuking shenanigan. I imagine that'll be the predominant strategy on offense, just because it works. That's pretty much it, it works. And speaking of working, Healing Tower doing its meme job of healing, and very counterintuitive for our Duma build with Vantage, healing him
cannot
out of
fall.
Vantage. Honestly though, most people who utilize that can beat him regardless. Even if he was in Vantage range, they'd still be able to beat him, but we've seen in the past, there's some instances where people sabotage
I cannot
themselves,
fall.
drop all of their units to super low HP, and they're able to actually pick up
You must be purified.
the kill on Doomer
Am I not
without
strong
dying.
enough?
So, unfortunately for our opponent here,
Not good
Brave
enough.
Erica missed the kill on Saros by a whopping 1 HP.
Careful now.
So that allowed us to pick up these kills here, and
Your
which is
candy
nice
will
for
be
us,
ours.
not great for the opponent. Duo Sith is here, struggling to one-round KO Olivia.
Let us celebrate.
Has
Yes,
to bring
let's.
double proc series here to guarantee the kill, but I mean, blue versus red moments. Unfortunately here, Healing Tower actually does something, and Duo Sothis absolutely not going to do anything
Surrender
against
your
Saros
sweets.
here. Base 0 damage, getting the serious off for a whopping 7 damage. Yeah, not gonna end well. And thanks to
sweets, not
Duo
savored.
Sothis dying, now Saros has charged up her Iceberg, which is nice and all, but the biggest thing is Ascended Fjorm not going to be able to deal with Mirabilis, and in fact would actually die, as showcased here,
Princess
the
Leor.
following hits, because her attack stat is pretty low at base. And here we are with Gatekeeper on offense. You don't see that too often, but honestly, having Gatekeeper or Legendary Mirror on offense against some of the shenanigans that are super common nowadays is pretty darn useful. Just being able to, say, prevent Harmonized Catria teleporting shenanigans with Triangle attack is huge. Of course, Wings of Mercy shenanigans, I know that's huge. And of course, the mobility of some units get limited as well. It's a useful tech. I wouldn't say it's an absolute must on every single offense team where you're trying to hit enter, but it's definitely
Withdraw
a solid
your
tech
blade.
option for sure.
Not very.
But here,
thoughtful.
Legendary Sigur's just going to nuke Legendary Crom in one shot. They didn't damage calc that, I imagine. Or if they did, they did not calc something correctly. And so Legendary Sigurd gets 2 kills, and that's it once again, because of course that's all our melee team can really do when someone hits end turn on us without actually initiating. Speaking of hitting end turn, one of the goofs I forgot to mention that we made on offense was assuming that. So there was a cav line defense we were up against with a dual peony and harmonized Azura. So my game plan was to, of course, force some baits where we could and manipulate the AI. And so I ran under the assumption that Harmonized Azura was going to dance instead of dual peony because of how I typically position my units. But let's
There is
just say we
nothing
didn't
to fear.
position our units how I was supposed to. So I went with that positioning, still on the assumption that we were going to get Harmonized Azura dancing, but of course that didn't happen because how AI works. So duo peony dance, and I knew we were going to lose a unit to one of the range calves getting danced by Harmonized Azura, and that's exactly what happened. So Ripperoni's there, but plenty of errors, like silly errors like that happened this week. If we want to do well in Chaos Season, we probably shouldn't do that. But I do expect Chaos Season to be pretty interesting, to say the least, because we do have to compete with literally everyone at the start. So we might end up first season just getting a ton of free wins, because of course we could just get matched up into one of the default Asker Trio defenses, which is totally possible, especially if people don't read and, for example, run 7 units on their defense, which makes the defense invalid, and therefore forces the game to run the Asker Trio defense.
Your life is forfeit!
But, or we could get just randomly matched into some of the best players' defenses in the game. Get absolutely railed. We'll see what happens, but what are you gonna do about it? This player played super smart. Unfortunately for us this time around, we had Duma and Fallen 4 instead of the catapults, so they could keep their safe defenses by sniping down Duma. So with that, they're able to get away with their shenanigans here. They got that turn 1 snipe down, and now they can just keep sniping down and picking up all the kills they want. Easy peasy, especially since they have duo skills, harmonized skills available. Super easy. Yeah, the thing with Chaos Season, of course, we can only run one dancer, which for our purposes is generally fine. On offense and defense, we typically run multiple dancers in case of people running isolation and whatnot. But I don't know how many people are going to run forms of isolation, or for that matter, how many people are going to run Elamine, because the thing about Elamine is she's a mythic, and so even as a mythic in the standard shenanigans like we have in Astra Anima, the opposing enemy units can get their res boosted by mythics that boost res. Like, for example, Mirabilis can do that. And so Elamine, on occasion, can have a difficult time actually proccing Staff of the Saints on enemy foes, but in Chaos Season, there's none of that, so it's just plain stats against plain stats, and Elamine's pretty much going to win almost every single check she could possibly want, so... And given a lot of defenses are running the usual shenanigans, like harmonized Catria and whatnot, or even infantry pulse to get lethalities up, for example, I think Elamine is just going to be absolutely insane in Chaos Season, but again, we'll have to see. But with that, we ended up doing alright on defense. Our meme all melee defense did okay. We'll see if we get top 3k here, not the end of the world if we don't. Don't really care. Care more though we did manage to stay in Bolt again, but again, this upcoming season's going to be quite wild. I think the most annoying thing is Ascended Florina's bonus for mobility. I've seen on some of my whale defenses. Pretty darn annoying. So, not really much we can do about stuff like that. I don't know how it's going to go down, but we're going to play Chaos Seasons pretty casually. Nothing, but we technically do still play Ether Raids in general pretty casually. We just... It sometimes looks tryhard because we do have pretty heavily merged mythics. And we do our daily damage calcs and stuff, but that's more for the being able to actually meme and pull off the memes we're doing more consistently. Because if we didn't do our daily damage calcs, we'd lose so many more matches to not knowing if, for example, Nino's going to Vantage Sweep an entire team. But speaking of not knowing, this week we're just scouting. I've been scouting score for people because this is a very suspicious week with Legendary Corrin being bonus, and it's also win season. So of course, we all knew the cutoff was going to be ridiculously high, but 3,880 is not holding. You do need to be able to score 766s to stay this week. And in fact, you might actually need to score 2. It looks like it's going to barely hold. There's about half an hour left in the season. So I am going to ride it out like a maniac, but for the record, we can 100% get all the 766s we want, and even 768s if we fish a bit more, because we're running double Earth Blessings and all that shenanigans. But we got our new personal best score in Arena Assault Plus again. The tactical tree mulliganing contributed to that. That was nice, but you can see here in Allegiance battles, if we check our score here, this team is scoring 756 to since 770 is not an actual score right now, 768. So we can easily fish for this matches, and for the most part, most of the matches are pretty easy. We can use Legendary Nana and Legendary Julia to take care of most of the threats Catria can't take care of, and typically Catria can 1v1 Legendary Foreign, so that's typically who we get the bonus kill on, but we will see if this holds. If this does not hold, then I believe this will be a new record for tier 21 cutoff for staying. I believe the current record is 3,882, but given how the new arena bonus season things go, it's not a surprise. Cutoffs are always super high nowadays, but we'll be back at this point when the results drop in. I don't think we'll make a cut if we end up deciding to rerun. Alright, I'm pretty sure that we should be good to go here. Top 3k. Alright, that's kind of interesting. Sort of surprised that just over 21k was still good enough for top 3k, but here we go. Absolute nightmare. I'm going to need to read everything properly, but this is what I don't understand here. It says all defensive teams get 40 to mitigation of lift loss, but then it says only normal bonus mythic heroes will lower lift loss on failed defense. So I'm guessing maybe the mechanic of when you take out a unit or something, you lose 20 less lift. Wait, no, that's not what it is. It's something where you lose 20 less lift when you're running the bonus mythic. Not entirely sure. So I didn't reruns. Let's see if we made it. And indeed we did, so it didn't break the record, but this is basically evidence that Arena is brain damage. If you haven't figured that out already, trying to stay in tier 21 free to play is absolutely a challenge. And even though we're going into this next bonus season with a +7 legendary Sigurd, I don't think we're gonna be able to stay because we'll actually have to check to see if I can score better using a water blessing, like using legendary Crom. I think it might end up just being better to use Sigurd, Nana, probably a dancer to make her life easier, and then score bot afterwards. We'll see what happens, but that's gonna be something. We might end up having to just straight up build a score bot out of grails like Yanfei. I was originally actually planning to build Yanfei, and then I thought about it more. I was like, he'd pretty much just end up being a score bot unless I super heavily invested into him. So I don't know, we'll see. But until then, that's gonna be it for this episode. Thanks for watching. As always, this is Ether Dragon, and hope to see you all next time. Bye.